Good morning. Welcome back to our, well, I should say welcome to our Monday morning show, Ask the Master Auto Technician. And this Monday morning, I got Frank Sundrum, and I think he spent all weekend working on his air conditioning on an antique car, antique motorhome, I should say. Frank, good morning. How we doing?
Good morning. Well, I am basking in ice cold air conditioning.
So apparently you did a successful transplant of an expansion valve.
Well, we did more than that. A friend of mine helped me, and we essentially took it down to the basics as you advised and went back up.
Well, very, very good.
We changed out the expansion valve, which after 41 years probably just needed a nap.
Mm-hmm.
And but we also changed out the receiver dryer.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly enough, we changed out the thermal switch, also the de-icing switch that was in there.
Mm-hmm.
But we also pulled out the evaporator and we cleaned it out, flushed it inside and out, blew out all the fins, straightened them out so they were true again, so we could get proper airflow, all that good stuff.
And the results were?
42-degree air when the outside ambient air was 75.
Well, that's pretty darn good. I think all we really shoot for is around 30 degrees, and you got that. That's for sure on that. So what did we ever come to conclusion? Was it the thermal switch that was making it stay off, or was it the expansion valve, or a combination of, or we just never quite figured out what was causing your warm, cold problem you were having?
I would think that it was probably the expansion valve, because it would just stick. And 40 years time, some dirt, maybe just the spring in there or whatever it was, regulatory mechanism was in there, was hanging up. But certainly, I wasn't going to do it by half measures.
No, well, and that's the best way to do it. Now, did you flush out the inside of the evaporator with AC flush, or you just blow it out with air, or what did you end up doing trying to clean it out?
We used the AC flush that was required.
Okay, very, very good. That's something a lot of people don't do, and they really should, because it gets all the nasties, all the old oil out of it, so you can put fresh oil back in it. And some people say, well, why do you want to do that? Well, a lot of people end up, if they don't flush it, they actually put too much oil in it, the oil that's in there previously, plus the oil you add. And oil takes up volume, and volume, of course, takes up refrigerant. So the more volume of oil, the less refrigerant you have. And you're operating with a 134 system, which takes 85% of what the R12 would have been. Is that correct? Is that what you ended up putting in there? 85% of it. And the system holds normally, what, 2.5, 3 pounds when it was with R12? Okay. And so
3 pounds, yeah.
And so you put in 85% of it, and it seemed to work pretty good. What was your high side and low side pressure readings? I don't know if you were able to do that or not, if you had gauges or not.
Oh, yes. We had it. We pulled a vacuum on it, and we let the vacuum sit for about, I guess, 45 minutes.
That's fine.
Just to make sure everything was stable. The thing that provided us the most headaches was the tubing that went to the receiver dryer. Those fittings, having sat in the rain and everything else for 40 years, were pretty difficult to get out, and it did take the heat wrench to really get them moving again.
Well, you got dissimilar metals. You've got aluminum and steel kind of mixed together there, and you get that galvanic action that takes place just by putting dissimilar metals together. And you had to take a little blue wrench to it, a little torch to it to get them to break free. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
that's pretty common.
We used a small butane, a butane torch, not an acetylene, just enough to get things moving a thousandth or so, and then we were able to just very slowly. Because we didn't want to bend the tube.
Well, and that's what you have to do a lot of times. Now, I tell people on the 134A system, they're going to be running. If you're going to be running R12, and now you had R12 and you're running 134A, you want to see your high side around 250, 225, 250, and you want to see your low side of around 35 to 45. What did y'all end up with on your pressures? Did you end up in that area?
Pretty much there. 30, 35, I think, on the low side, and the I thought it was on 225 or so.
Okay, the high side.
But one of the things is when you're working on an antique vehicle, you're as much a mechanic as you are a detective to the previous owners.
True. We in my business, we see that every day. We have to kind of figure out what's been done to this to make it why it's doing what it's doing, because customers won't always tell us what they've done to it to fix the problem that they're having. We see all sorts of weird things over the years. But yes, you were able to do the detective. What did you end up detectiving, finding out that had been done by the previous owners on this air conditioning?
Well, we started getting pretty good temperatures out there, but the airflow wasn't what it ought to have been. And we had taken the remarkable precaution of taking the heater box, cleaning it all out, vacuuming it out. There was a little bit of stuff left from animals and things, not a lot.
Yeah.
But my friend, who's more familiar with the motorhome than I am, kept looking into the box deep with a puzzled look. And then he said, "Come with me." We went into the cockpit, and he looked underneath the dash, and where there was, and then he said, "You see that there?" And all I saw was carpet. And he says, "Give me a knife." And he takes the knife, and he cuts a hole in the carpet and opens up a hole directly into the heater box, which was the recirculate door that somebody had carpeted over when they did the cockpit.
So they recirculated over they put carpet over the recirculate door. So you were always getting So you were always getting fresh air in and couldn't get recirculated. Is that what was happening, or what?
Yes, pretty much.
Pretty much. That could cause a lot of problems there too. One of the things I've seen, even on today's cars, since we're talking about air conditioning and stuff getting inside there, people will put napkins in their glove box. Go to the drive-through, they pick napkins and all these things. Well, the napkins have a tendency to be sucked out of the glove box into the evaporator or into the blower motor, because the blower motor is like 8 inches away from the glove box. And I had one come in last week, customer complaining, "My air conditioning just does not blow cold at all." And I'm going, "Well, it looks fully charged." And I check it out and everything seems fine. And then when I drove the car on the highway, I could see what was going on. I said, "Something's happening." I said, "My pressures are not right." And when I put on recirculate, I noticed there was no change. And then I pulled the glove box down, looked inside it, and there must have been half a dozen napkins had been sucked up into it, and that's what the problem was. And all we had to do is reach in there, pull the napkins out, problem solved. But something like that can really, and that's one of the things that people need to be precautioned about, is putting napkins in their glove box, because they will get sucked into the blower motor. That's just something that you might, I don't know if your glove box is even near your blower motor. I kind of doubt it is on that motorhome. But go ahead.
No, it isn't. It's some distance away, but I had exactly that problem with an Acura when the world was much younger, and my air conditioning went to Kaflooey, and I took it to a shop, and they pulled out some pieces of paper I had in the glove box.
Very, very common. People don't realize how common. Another thing that's common on today's cars, not your antique car, because your antique motorhome, there was no cabin air filter in your car. So that's why you had all the bugs and stuff down there on the evaporator. Well, today's cars have cabin filters, and if they get clogged up, believe it or not, they can cause the compressor to fail by not allowing, I know it sounds hard to believe, because it will not allow the liquid refrigerant to boil off before it gets pulled back to the compressor. It won't allow it to get hot enough to boil it off, so it ends up slugging the compressor with a liquid. We've actually seen that happen. It's rare, but it does happen. But people, I've had them come in here so clogged up that the customers had no air coming out at them. When they turn the air conditioning on, you just barely feel it. Go in there, pull that out, and all of a sudden you got all the air you want. But a lot of people don't realize they have cabin air filters in there. And that's something it needs, for those listening out there, something you need to check yearly. I have some people, well, my wife's car, she has a 2004, and she didn't realize she had a cabin filter in it till last year. Because we had previously had an employee here that says, "I used to work on these things. They don't have cabin filters." And I believed him. And guess what? They do have cabin filters. They really do. And a lot of cars do. Starting around 2004, a lot of cars have cabin filters in them. I didn't know if you knew that or not, Frank. I figured I'd give you a little bit of information there.
reminds me I have a couple of Priuses whose cabin air filters I need to order and change. The last thing we did, James, which is something you had touched on very kind of in passing 2-3 weeks ago when I started bothering you with this whole thing, was that we hosed down the radiator and the condenser, and all 41 years of junk
came out of
came out.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
A lot of people don't realize the importance of cleaning between the condenser and the radiator. It gets packed up with lots of trash. They actually make tools that you can go down between the condenser and radiator that blow sideways air, that you can blow all the trash out, blow it out backwards. That's something that you need to do. You're supposed to do that yearly, but most people don't until they have a problem. But once you cleaned all that out, it was more efficient. The air conditioner, you were able to do better heat transfer, and it was able to work like it's supposed to, which is kind of nice when you got a 41-year-old truck or motorhome that's working like it's supposed to. Does it do a pretty good job cooling with the 134A in there versus the R12?
I couldn't tell the difference. I mean, I could. I think there were so many things that we did, but the idea of getting that kind of a temperature drop, I had never seen the AC system work that well.
Well, you can actually get away with it on some of those older model ones because they have big enough tubing to get away with it. The biggest problem was it's not exactly a drop-in replacement, but it's darn close. And now they're coming out with a new refrigerant. We only got about a minute or so left. It's called R1234YF. And it cost me, my cost, over $100 a pound to replace.
Ouch.
Yes, it is. Very, very expensive stuff. And they're telling us in order to find the leaks in this system, there's 2 or 3 ways of doing it. One is to use a dye, but if the dye, by the time you see the dye leak out, you've already lost a half a pound to a pound of refrigerant, and customers don't like to pay for that. Or 2, refill it with 134A with dye, drive it around, and then find out where the leaks are on it, fix the leak, suck the 134A out, and replace it with R1234YF. Or the third way is to use CO2, fill it with CO2, and then take a CO2 leak detector and see where the leaks are. But the days of just throwing in refrigerant and then looking for where leaks are on like R12 or 134A, those are going away. It's going to be going away, especially with this R1234YF that started coming out. I want to say it started coming out in 2013, 2014 vehicles. Just about every car made in 2017 and up is R1234YF now. I didn't know if you knew that or not. Just wanted to pass that on to those listening out there.
Well, it's one more, so I guess I've got to start hoarding my 134A along with my R12.
When the patents run out, that's exactly what happens. We only got 15 seconds left. Frank, what do you want to say before we go? Give you 15 seconds.
Well, thank you very much. I will doubt you no longer when you make a call.
Frank, you're very kind. I'll talk to you next. You're going to be calling this Thursday at 6:15?
Indeed.
All right, we'll talk to you then. Let me know how this works on your trip back up from where you were. All right, talk to you later, everybody. Bye-bye. Summer is here and the days are getting longer and hotter. Call James Auto Center for a free cooling system evaluation and consultation. Give us a call, 850-763-0555 today.
Part of what I'd like to let you know is what we do and how we work our system. Basically, we've got about 700 stocking dealers scattered around the 15 counties here in the Big Bend area of the state. I run a fleet of trucks, vans, and what we call hotshot vehicles to deliver to our dealers quickly so they can help service you as fast and efficiently as they can. Provide timely and efficient service, and we're there to take care of our dealers who in turn can take care of their customers.
If you want the best deal in town for tires, you need to call Baytown Tires at 873-8900.
Hanson and the guys at Baytown Tires take pride in serving Panama City for over 20 years. Baytown Tires on Highway 98 in St. Andrews. All service work backed by a nationwide warranty.
Water is too powerful to fight alone. Mr. Router Plumbing. Sink, shower and toilet emergency drain services.
All right, welcome back to our Monday morning show. I have Scott Hobbs. He calls every Monday morning, and we learn something about preventive maintenance on your home drainage system, whether you were on sanitary sewer or septic system. There's always something you needed to be preventative about, especially when it comes to the maintenance, because if you're not, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Well, that's what we try to talk about, how you can be proactive and make sure your drains stay running. And that's why I got Scott Hobbs all the way from Mr. Rooter Plumbing. You can call him at 763-2001 if you got a problem. But good morning, Scott. I know you're awake, but it's definitely early, is it not?
It is. I'm awake, and I'm on my way to the office. But I think when it comes to plumbing and automotive maintenance, a few dollars of prevention saves thousands of dollars of repair.
Well, you got a point there, because look, what we're talking about right here, the BioChoice. Okay, we talk about that every week. This stuff right here is not. It's kind of like, well, it's like a plumber in a bottle. I mean, you've got those stuff out there that clean drains out, like Mr. Plumber or whatever, and those things, if I'm not mistaken, aren't they caustic? You cannot put your hand down on that stuff, can you?
Oh, sure. There's so many products out there that are caustic and cause all sorts of problems with your drainage, and they're just not safe to have in your home.
Right.
In addition, if they're mixed, there was a situation years ago where an elderly couple kept going back to the home center to try something different, and they mixed several different chemicals, and it put when the plumber finally arrived, they put the plumber in the hospital because he went into the bathroom and breathed the combination, the chemical reaction of all the different products.
Yeah.
And of course, it's just not safe for people or for your plumbing.
Okay, the bad part about it is we know it's not safe because they closed down these meth houses and these drug houses because they use plumbing. If I'm not mistaken, they use some of the Red Devil plumbing agents that are caustic. They use that to make, along with match heads. I'm just telling you what they tell me. I've never seen it, but those things are so caustic that they actually have to close houses down and evacuate them and take all the sheetrock down from the product that's so caustic. But people aren't making meth in their bathrooms, but they can be making a caustic smell with bleach, ammonia, the lye. You put all that together, and you can come out with some pretty chlorine gas, I think, is what it produces. And
probably, sure, yeah.
And that's pretty caustic stuff. Matter of fact, we had back in the 80s, I think we just celebrated our 40th something anniversary of recognized the anniversary of the train derailment in Youngstown, where several people were killed by chlorine gas. So it is.
That's right.
It is pretty dangerous stuff out there, and so people need to be aware of that. And now this BioChoice down here, I mean, people say, well, is it caustic? Well, just to show you that it's not caustic, I can actually take it, get it on my finger, put it in my mouth, and I'm not writhing in pain. It's kind of bland, Scott. It really doesn't have much of a flavor at all. It really doesn't. So, but it's not going to kill your pets. It's not going to make your dog sick or your cat sick. But what it is going to do, it's going to take your slow drains and make them drain better. It's going to make it's preventative maintenance, and for septic tanks, you're supposed to flush a half a gallon down this toilet directly in the septic tank immediately after pumping, and then after that, 2 ounces per week. Now, I know that pumping a tank out is not exactly a $29.95 oil change, is it not? I mean,
that's exactly right. It's not.
So by investing in a half a gallon of this and then 2 ounces every month, 2 ounces per week, you'll probably save thousands of dollars over a period of time, and maybe only invest maybe $100 or $200 over the period of time for this stuff right here over a period of time, whereas that septic tank gets rather expensive to pump out and clean.
Well, I can tell you the tanks that we've been into that the homeowners are diligent about using that product. You open that tank and it's not clear water, but the water doesn't have all the fats, oils, and grease floating on the top that you would normally see. It's just amazing the difference between that and a tank that has never used that product, and they haven't been cautious about what they put in the tank. and it's just a night and day difference.
Well, you were telling me that what you're trying to treat is the water that's in between the top and the bottom. Is that what that gray water or whatever? Is that what you're treating? But you're saying this stuff right here, BioChoice, keeps stuff from floating on the top and fixing on the top, crusting on the top. I might venture to say that may be what it's doing, but it keeps that in suspension. It breaks it down, the floating things, the floaters, so to speak.
That's right. So the way the septic system works is the fats, oils, and grease will float to the top. The sludge that breaks down, it sinks, it's heavier, and then the clear water stays in the middle, and that's what works its way into your drain field. If you want it to be as clear as possible, you don't want little particles, you don't want the suspended particles to make it their way into your drain field and ultimately ends up with drain field failure. So this BioChoice is a live, active bacteria that multiplies as it has food. When you introduce it into a situation where there's food for it, fats, oils, and grease, it just goes to work eating it away and actually turns it into water, so it's clear and can pass on through the system, whether it's a septic system or a conventional system, city sewer connection.
And since it's a liquid, it starts working as soon. It works in the pipes. That's the thing. You've got these other products out there that are a dry product that you flush down the toilet and everything, but it's a dry product and it's still dry as it's being flushed down the toilet, and it really doesn't start working until after it sits in the septic tank for a little while and starts doing its job. But this right here, it's designed, if I'm not mistaken, you're telling me to keep my drain lines from the house to the septic tank or to the city. Those lines will clog up, and I've seen them clog up. I guess I've seen them as much as a 3.5 inch or 4 inch pipe being about the size of a 2 inch pipe from fats, oils, and grease. And this prevents this. This is like doing a radiator flush, so to speak. How your radiator tubes get clogged up over a period of time from calcium and slime and things like from old, weak, neglected antifreeze. Well, this does the same thing in your septic tank and drainage system that putting in a flush in your radiator we used to do years ago. We don't do that anymore because of radiators changed, but we used to do that. And this makes everything turn into water, and not just kick the can down the road and re-solidify 100 yards down the drain into a big blob of grease anymore. That's the difference between this and an enzyme. Is that correct?
That's right. An enzyme is going to break it down to where it's mobile. It'll move down the system, and then it'll re-solidify, at a destination somewhere down the pipe. And you mentioned the dry powder stuff. Mm-hmm. Much of the dry powder stuff has to have a perfect environment for the bacteria to become active. The temperature has to be perfect. Everything has to be just right for that bacteria to become active from a dried state. Where this bacteria in that bottle is active right now, and it begins to multiply as it is introduced to a food source, which would be your pipes, the food, fats, oils, and grease. Now that is a slow process. So if you have a completely clogged drain that's stopped up, this is not going to unclog it. At that point, I would suggest calling a professional plumber to come out and open the drain up, get it flowing, and then use this to get the pipes back to close to where they were, originally, and to maintain them in that respect.
Yeah. Well, sometimes people, like you said, sometimes people wait too long, and this right here will not open up a clogged drain, right?
That's right.
This will not open up a clogged drain. It will keep open an already slow-running drain and make it run better. That's what it will do. And it doesn't work overnight. But how long does it take for it to open up to make a slow-running drain start working better? If we notice a difference, a week, 2 weeks, maybe.
Well, it all depends on the condition, but it can act really quickly. We've seen situations where a few weeks later the homeowner's kitchen sink drain is draining much better, and from a slow moving drain. Again, the best situation is if you have a slow drain, go ahead and have a plumber out to clean it, open it up properly, clean that line, and then use this as a preventative maintenance, so you don't have to have us back out ever again. Mm-hmm.
Well, now we got a few minutes left. I want you to talk about the Advantage plan. Now, a lot of people may have heard about it and in passing, and sometimes your guys get so busy they can't explain it, but the Advantage plan has an advantage not just to you, but an advantage to the homeowner or the business owner, that we're on a priority basis. If I call and I have the Advantage plan and someone else calls at the same time, y'all will come to me first before y'all will come to them. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. You know, and over the 4th of July holiday, we have 3 times a year that we close down, 4th of July, Thanksgiving Day, and Christmas Day, and we have a manager actually on call. And the only calls that we'll respond to would be an Advantage plan customer with a true emergency.
And yes,
so that we take those customers very seriously. They're family to us, and they're our priority for sure.
Now, I tell you what, you've been on your WPAP. I know you talked to Dr. Shane over there. And one of the things that I've actually heard you talk to him about is how people they're so much happier. You make the houses, well, they're actually cleaner, not the houses, but you make sure the area, the work area is cleaner than what you found it. When you go in there and you got a nasty sink or whatever, that sink's not nasty when you leave. And
we do our very best to make sure that our areas, and it's no different than what you guys do with taking care of the inside of the car, and we don't have greasy handprints all over our steering wheel. It's just pride in your workmanship.
You'd be surprised how many people put greasy fingerprints and don't think anything about it. I have to fuss at my guys still. I go, if this was your mama's car, would you hand it back to her with greasy fingerprints on the fender? No, you don't do that. Make sure it's wiped off. It cannot go back. We want to be, y'all are the gentlemen plumbers. We want to make sure we're the gentlemen mechanics and make sure the car is as clean or cleaner than when we found it. A lot of times cleaner. Sometimes we get cars that come in here that, well, some of them I've actually told my guys, I need to light off a roach bomb before you vacuum it out. I mean, I've seen them that bad before.
Oh, sure.
I hate when cars get like that, but I'm sure y'all run into the same thing on houses too sometimes.
We do.
And sometimes you shake your head and go, how do people live like that? But that's the way people choose to, and that's their choice. But one of the things y'all do is make sure drains are clean, water is supplied under pressure correctly, and the two are right beside each other, the waste and the water supply, and make sure those two don't get mixed. And that's very, very important. And that's what's changed in plumbing in the last 20 years is how close they've gotten to the supply and discharge and the materials. Our water piping is not made out of metal anymore. It's made out of PEX tubing you talked to me about. And we don't have a lot of copper anymore or brass. We're using a lot of plastics and using a lot of porcelain. And, well, things have definitely changed. The materials, have they not, in the last 20 years?
Oh, they really have. They sure have. And I feel like for the better.
Yeah, I think for the better. Well, we got about 20 seconds left. Anything you'd like to tell our listening audience out there?
Well, just, give us a call. We're available anytime, day or night. If you are looking to start a career and have good mechanical abilities and good people skills, good home training, we'd love to train you to learn this trade.
And you can make a lot more than the average medium income in Bay County working as a plumber. You sure can. All right, Scott, thank you so much. Summer is here and the days are getting longer and hotter. Call James Auto Center for a free cooling system evaluation and consultation. Give us a call, 850-763-0555 today.
Guaranteed. Beep, 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 yeah!